So, as I've shown a few times in the past, I've accumulated a sizable collection over the years, and I partly have collector's editions to thank for that. Yeah, seriously. I definitely have a weakness for buying collector's editions. The more out there, the better. As with everything, not all collector's editions are made equal. Some stand out as decent collector's pieces, while others will have you wondering why you bought it in the first place, or is it even worth it? So I want to take the time to highlight some of the collector's editions I've bought over the years, and see which ones are worth the extra cost and which ones were best left on the shelf. This is Was It Worth It? For our first edition of Was It Worth It, I present to you all Persona Q. Released back in November of 2014, this game is a spin-off of a spin-off. Don't think too hard about that. Persona Q is a crossover of Persona 3 and 4's cast in a kinda canon but largely inconsequential romp. It's a fun game, but we're here to look at the Premium Wildcards edition. The package deal here offered quite a bit of physical goods, which is primarily what I'll be assessing it for. One thing I do want to note is that while I'm trying to assess the quote, worthiness, unquote, of this edition, monetary value will only be discussed when going over how much this package costs versus the base game. In this particular instance, the collector's edition of this game costs $79.99 USD, $40 more than the base price of a 3DS game at this time. For that much more, you get a 3DS carrying case, an official soundtrack, an art book, and some tarot cards. In order to determine the worthiness, which, again, is subjective, I'm going to tally up the positive points and the negative points with regards to each one of the items, based on what is advertised and what the standard generally is. The prime item here is a 3DS carrying case, which is branded with the Persona Q art and logo. Just on the basis of looks, this is one cool case. I especially enjoyed the choice of colors, as they are based on the palette choices found in Persona 3 and 4. The top side of the case merely shows the logo, while the underside shows the full roster of characters, the P3 cast on the left and the P4 cast on the right, with the PQ original characters in the middle, aka those jobbers. Inside the case you have art of Teddy and Koromaru, which is pretty cool. Funny thing to notice is that inside the case there's a tag that reads Nintendo 3DS LL, despite the fact that this came included in the US release. I really enjoyed the more cutesy and simplified art style that the Q series had, and it's nice to see it displayed both inside and outside of the case. I also enjoyed that the zippers have the stylized exclamation marks on them. It's a nice little touch. I love this case a lot from a presentation standpoint, but its durability isn't its strong suit. The build is pretty malleable, and I'm pretty sure mine came with some light indentation on the surface right out of the box. Don't get me wrong, it's a functional case, and it was certainly my go-to case for my 3DS. But as far as protective cases go, you could do better. I'd overall call this case a plus, because personally it's exactly what I expected it to be, a functional and very stylish carrying case that still gets the job done. Some collector's editions are oftentimes known for their inclusion of an oddly specific collectible item. Goofy things like a compass, underwear, or a baby. Yeah. Persona Q definitely has one of those items with its inclusion of tarot cards. Modeled directly after the ones found in the games, the cards are nicely printed on decently thick cardstock, and they come in a set of 11 cards. It's to my understanding that Atlus had included tarot cards in one of their other collector's editions, so that makes them a bit collectible in that TCG kind of way, even though you can't really play with them, nor do they allow you to summon your persona. I personally like these. They're simple but serve the fun novelty of being a physical recreation of something you see very frequently in the game. I give these another plus in my book. I just think they're neat. Sure, it's just cardstock with pretty art on it, but you do have to appreciate these items differently. I personally give them some leeway as I can't always grade these in relation to other collectibles, and the scale is already skewed because individual items like this are part of a package. So far, the package is pretty strong on those two items alone, which is good, because frankly, I think the weakest part of the package is the art book and the soundtrack. Now, I'm not going to weigh these on the quality of art or music presented, although if you had to ask me, it is great stuff, don't get me wrong. Rather, what I'm weighing it on is the amount of material presented. The art book stands at 38 pages long, and the CD includes 4 tracks. Yes, you heard right, 4 tracks. Like it's a singles release. Now, the art book was openly advertised at 38 pages, and while it does present a decent amount of promo art of the characters, it reads like a fancy manual. The outside of the book has this web texture that looks and feels nice, but with the amount of material shown, it's basically a manual. Now, I know games these days don't typically come with manuals, but that's what this art book feels like. It feels like a substitution to what we used to get before, but now. 70% of the pages are just character profiles, and the last 30% shows boss art and environmental material. The very last 5 pages that are dedicated to promo art are nice, but they do leave you wanting. It may sound like I'm being a bit harsh here, but the art book here, while slim on material, is of good quality. But I do have to mark this as a weaker inclusion. I like the design and the presentation. It's fitting given the source material. And while I'm being negative, at 38 pages, I was aware not to expect much. So that said, I'm going to have to mark this as a neutral point, neither positive nor negative, because it is an accurate representation, it just leaves you wanting more. Lastly, the CD. Ugh. 4 tracks. 4 tracks wouldn't be a bad thing if this was a Sun CD, where the tracks are like 14 minutes each. But this is a game soundtrack, and frankly, 4 tracks is pretty skim. It's especially skim when you consider that some releases of games, like Day 1 versions, give you official soundtracks with way more tracks and at no extra cost. It's why I have to mark this as the one negative of this edition. But that said, at 2 positives, 1 neutral point, and 1 negative, the positives easily outweigh the negatives in this package deal. You do have to look at this from a package deal sense, and for the extra cost, I'm quite content with my purchase. Even if the soundtrack features less material than an 8-track, I'm honestly quite happy to have this in my collection, especially since it's an Atlas game, which those over time become rarer to seek out. So, in overview, we have a functional case that is very stylish, but not the most durable thing, still a plus in my book. A set of tarot cards, which, while silly, is very representative of the series in question, which I like. A so-so art book, which really doubles as a manual by old school standards, which I guess in an era where we don't have manuals anymore, it's a plus, but I'm going to weigh it as a neutral since it's presented as an art book. And then, of course, a really slim CD soundtrack. At that rate, I'm pretty happy with this, and it's a very welcome part of the collection. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe to my channel.